NPR anchor. I mean, you know, the monotone, like, well, today we
Hey,
had
I think we got it. I think we got it.
sweet.
Let me check and see
Good.
if it's run. Yep, we got it. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sabian Ruffin, and I'm here today with Mr. Frank Lynch. How you doing, Frank?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, as you can see, we have caught let me just take this video and post the live link in chat for the both of us. You can see that we have caught hell and high water trying to get this going, but we shall make it work. So, but yeah, other than that,
Good.
I'm just glad to be here.
And I just went live in Hades, baby.
Yeah, it's a see. This is I think that what we're experiencing here is also a significant portion of the Mars retrograde. You know what I mean? Like Mars is all about a person's ambitions. It's all about anger. It's all about how we go and get it out the mud. And with it being in retrograde right now, I think that we're experiencing some intense frustrations with getting some projects off the ground, especially since Mars is still very belligerent in the face of Venus right now and in the face of Saturn. So, gotta roll with the punches, you know what I mean? Oh, hold on. Now, stuff. Can you. Hold on. I can't hear you now. Okay, say something. Hello?
I'm Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, now you're coming through again because I saw you speaking, but nothing was coming out.
Yeah, so we keep seeming to be having some communication problems this morning. So so you know, my friend, I went live in Hades babies, and so just for the sake of the few people watching and listening to us here, good morning, and we're here on Sabian's podcast, to, and you're Terra Nova, correct?
Correct.
And so we were just talking a little bit about Mars, like you said. And I think you hit some really good points. And I think everyone's pretty agitated right now. Have you been feeling a little, I don't know, stress or
Oh, Mars is transiting my seventh house right now, and you already know how it go when Mars is in the seventh house. That it be ready to fight everybody.
oh
So,
yeah. Well, people forget, you know, the seventh house is also enemies, right? It's open enemies because it's the people who are on equal footing with us. You know,
believe it or
seventh
not, you're
house
not the first person to
relationships.
tell me that.
Ah,
Somebody told me that just uncannily enough. Somebody told me that just the day before we did this here. It's funny how that works out.
I'm sorry.
we we having the Mercury at 12th house problems right now. You went live in your group, right? Let me see if I'm even coming through right now. Audio input capture, filters, suppression, gain. Hello, Frank. Can you hear me? You're freezing up over there. Your camera's frozen. I think you're having some bandwidth issues at the moment, possibly. Hello? Put that over there. Okay, Discord is now an aux input. You seem to be experiencing some bandwidth issues. Potential. Well, as you can, like, let's go. I actually cast an orrery chart. I know it's in Placidus and you're supposed to use Regiomontanus for whenever you're doing an orrery, but I promise you, like, back to chart selection, you look at the chart, it's gonna tell you the same thing as it did with Placidus in there. Like, part of fortune's in the 10th house in this chart. Great place for it to be, but unfortunately, with that Mercury in 12th over there, we seem to be having more issues than we normally would. So I'm gonna wait for Frank to try to reconnect here, and we're gonna have a good conversation today about oh, there he seems to have no capture, video capture device. Just a second, it's available there. That's gonna squish it out. Hello?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, so what I did is I ended the live in my group because I think I was taking up too much bandwidth.
Yeah, what we can do is if you have to get off the camera to make the live happen in your group, I have no problem with that. You know, I'm glad to have you here on the show, despite the fact we 37 minutes in and we haven't even been able to actually get down to nothing because all these little technical issues we had. It happens.
Well, so why don't we just stay on here and
And you got the link to the live.
exactly.
Uh, I sure appreciate you sending me a couple people my way to watch the live, and uh, I honestly was not expecting this. This is something that I'm going to do from now on every time before I go live. I'm going to cast an orrery chart like this just to see like what all is going on at the moment, to try to head off some issues. I'm not saying I'm an expert at orrery, but I've done a chart before, and I've you know read it to some reasonable accuracy. I was expecting with the ascendant in Libra today, I was expecting things to be a little bit more harmonious. But as you can see, Mars is over there in the 7th house acting a whole doggone fool. Retrograde.
Yeah, and the Mars exactly. And that energy's strong right now, you know. And I've been noticing just in my personal life, at work, with friends, everyone seems a little bit on edge. Have you been feeling that a bit?
Yeah, like I went to the gas station to get one of my favorite little foods there. It's like a special kind of chicken that they only sell at that gas station. And so it's called chicken gizzards. Now I asked for
Chicken
gizzards. Yeah, it's actually a part of. Let me see if I don't remember off the top of my head what
No,
what the.
that's just southern.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Yeah, like it's a muscular, thick-walled part of a bird's stomach for grinding food, typically with grit. Now, the thing about um, gizzards is that they're a little high in cholesterol, but they're also a great source of protein. So they're not the worst thing in the world up until you start like deep frying them
Right.
and whatnot. But this is the South. What isn't deep fried? The airport near deep fried down. Ugh. So, but yeah, though. So I got in the car, and you see people. See now, people can think what they want to think, but there's a reason why I always check my food. Like I taste my food before I pull off because I got in my car and I tasted, I spat it out on the ground because it was gritty and bitter. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is chicken livers, not gizzards. So I had to walk myself back up in that store and be like, hey, y'all gave me the wrong thing. And the lady, the woman who was working the place, she had the most glazed look in her eye. Like she looked like she didn't even want to be there, and wasn't really paying too much attention. Was giving just, I don't know. It was fun, but yeah, I feel like people right now are being are really feeling some type of way. And especially in my area, people like drive with their brights on a lot, like even when cars are oncoming. So it's kind
Right.
of hard to see at night because other people can't see at night apparently. But yeah,
Exactly.
here they are out here driving, even though they know that they can't see at night and they need their nuclear reactor headlights just to be able to see 2 feet in front of them.
Yeah.
Mars
That
retrograde.
sounds a bit extreme. And what's that?
I just said Mars retrograde.
Yeah, and Mars retrograde, right? And where's Mars natally for you?
It's, funnily enough, this order chart. It oh, my natal Mars, Gemini Mars, ninth house, 26 degrees. It's actually conjunct a fixed star of sorts that apparently, uh, like Gemini is already a verbal energy, but this fixed star is like, hey, sometimes you can incite people a little bit extra with the stuff you say. You feel me? Like if I go look on Astro King at the fixed stars, there's one right in the orb of 26 degrees at Gemini. It's Alheka. That's what they call it. Yeah, Alheka.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you cut out there for just a second. So you were saying your Mars is in Gemini, right?
Yep. Twenty
What
six
degree?
degrees.
26 degrees. So you might be getting a sextile here and there to your natal Mars out of this. So, you know, right now, I'd have to look at the ephemeris and see exactly where it is. But, we're in Aries, I think, somewhere in the middle of the sign, retrograde.
Yeah, we're at
And,
28 degrees 5 minutes.
okay. So have you been feeling a sextile or some of that sort of energy? Like, have you been feeling the maybe contrary impetus that most of us would be feeling? Maybe getting a little boost in some of your drive, your confidence, or
Oh,
maybe
for
getting a
sure.
you know
Absolutely. I've definitely been feeling like, hey, a lot of stuff has been thrown at me, but I feel very well equipped to respond to this what's been thrown at me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because on the one hand, there's this mass effect with a retrograde Mars, right? Where it kind of forces us all kind of in on ourselves and it makes us all kind of a bit agitated because who really wants to be kind of introspective or inward looking? We always want to go get things. Mars is the desire nature, right? You know,
Absolutely.
it's how we get what we want, and when we kind of have our desires thwarted and our attention kind of turned around on itself. Time,
And it's in
and a lot
Aries
of us get
nonetheless.
agitated.
It's in Aries right now. Aries ain't trying to sit there
And it's
and exact. You know what I'm saying? Aries don't handle retrograde energy too well. It's like, okay, time to go over and redo your home. Aries like, ain't nobody got time for that.
what could you really quickly again tell me uh, how to tag your group, your page, real quick? I just want to make sure that everyone knows where we're at.
It is at SXR Astro.
That's what it was.
Yeah, the username and like the page URL name and the actual name of the page right now seem to have an inconsistent. I will work on that later. I will change the URL. I just wanted to say SXR Astro to be reflective of the fact it's a division of SXR Media.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I didn't remember the combination of the letters, and I want everyone to know where we're at, and that it was a bandwidth issue. I mean, that's the thing, right? The internet, it sucks. at least at least in this country, it seems to. We pay an arm and a leg for it, and then we're all competing with everyone else in our area, right? For band.
And if you get dissatisfied with one provider, you go to another provider, and that's it. Like you got most places have two, maybe three providers. Like I live in a state right now, it's only two providers out here, unless you want to go with some satellite internet. And at that point, call yourself a cow because you finna get milked. You know what I'm saying? They finna take some money from you.
Well, yeah, and the satellite internet too. It's contingent a lot of times on weather. I've heard,
Mm, yeah.
So, and people pay a lot for that. I wish I could have fiber, but it's
Mm.
getting bigger, but it's still super, super expensive.
Yeah,
But
so tell me,
uh,
Frank, you've been dealing with astrology and tarot and the like for about 15 years now. I say
yeah,
we ain't never seen no energy like this before, have we?
no, we haven't. And quite honestly, historically, even I would draw parallels between energetically what's happening now and what happened around the time of the American Revolution. And then when Pluto was last at 24, 23 degrees Capricorn, it was around that time, 1776, and all the events leading up to that climax. And then not shortly after that, you had Pluto go into the sign of Aquarius, all around the time of the French Revolution. know, and Saturn, right, getting ready to go over into Aquarius in December. Again, this is it's an interesting sort of confluence of forces because we do have Mars retro, right? And Mars retro, like we said, it does spur antagonisms, and it does kind of weave this sort of quasi-violent, sort of agitated energy where everything is kind of boiling, but boiling underneath the surface. The steam isn't being let off like Mars typically likes to do.
Right. Let me
And
get you a resource real quick. I sent you both on Discord and on Facebook a chart of when the live was supposed to start, just to give you like a little bit of what all is going on right now. Yeah.
oh, yeah, so in a sec, I'd love for us to talk about horary because I'm trying to learn about it now, and it's not a technique that I'm super super familiar with. And when I encounter one, I'm not. I want to learn it. So this is really cool. So I'm seeing the horary chart. We've got a Libra rising, which makes perfect sense for kind of our
For what we're
our
doing
rapport.
here. Yeah.
It is relationship, it's communication, right? And Libra is very diplomatic and balanced, and I feel like we both have pretty good manners.
Oh
um,
yeah, for sure.
11th house, right? 11th house sun in Virgo. I typically read
Well,
that as
check
you
it out
know
real quick. Check it out real quick. That sun
Hmm.
is at 20. That sun is at 20 degrees Virgo. Generally speaking, in an ordinary chart, if a body of significance is within 6 degrees of the house that comes thereafter, it is considered to be a resident of that house. So in orrery, this sun in 11th house Virgo would be actually a sun in 12th house, 12th house, which would be indicative of like trying to get the fine details right and the general nervousness, but feeling like something's just a little bit off that you can't really quite put your finger on, as is the case of the 12th house more often than not. Right now the moon is actually conjunct my Ceres because I got Ceres in the ninth house tightly conjunct my midhaven, which often talks about Ceres, being how you personally nurture yourself, and it's kind of it's coming into a position of being at odds with Mars at the moment. Like the moon is just a couple degrees shy of being of squaring Mars right now. You know how Cancer Moon is. Cancer Moon is sensitive. Cancer Moon likes to be coddled. Cancer Moon likes to take its time, just like Capricorn likes to do. But Aries is an energy of I don't care about your feelings. I got things what I want to get done, and I want them to get done right now. So what we dealing with right now is we dealing with the moon in its rulership over here in Cancer, and it's going to be applying a square already to the already existing belligerence of Mars. Like out of everything in the sky right now, like even Venus herself over in Leo right now, she's not doing nearly as much to make things as frustrated right now, even though she is squaring uh, Uranus and Saturn and Mars right now. So she's really in poor taste right now. Like she's poorly afflicted. Cause like take a look here. So Venus is in the 10th house, right? That's your career. That's your ambitions, your pursuits and whatnot. Normally that would be a house better suited to Mars. But Venus is kind of like taking on a rather Martian stance here, if you will. Like it's Leo. Leo is like, this is mine. I want this right now. I'm going after this, and it's in a very early degree of Leo as well. So it hasn't had yet time to really harness that Leo energy. It just knows what it wants and why it wants it, and it's kind of butting heads with everything else in the process of getting it. And when you have two fire energies butting heads and then you toss a little bit of water in it, it's like throwing a depth charge into the ocean and just, exploding it and seeing it. It's like, well, some fish will come up. I'm going to get what I want eventually. I'm just going to keep throwing depth charges in that water until some fish come up. I get into this stuff, man. I love it. I've
I
been doing this for about 2 good years, but I like it. You know what I'm saying?
I recall you have a lot of ninth house in your chart. Pretty prominent in the ninth house, and that the ninth house is the house of astrology, and really it's the house of the occult. Everyone thinks it's the eighth house and eighth house placements, but that's more like mediumship, psychic stuff, things that you're not really aware of how they work, right? The ninth house is where you go deep and you learn this stuff, and you do like you just did, where you kind of did a little dissertation on all the connections, right? And I mean,
Oh
in
yeah.
the houses, what's that?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and me in the houses. My first inclination looking at this chart, and I sure wish I could share a screen or inclination, is to want to move that 12th house to line up in sync with 0 degrees Libra and 0 degrees Scorpio, so that the whole first house is a whole sign house, right? In
Right.
Libra, because that sun would be in the 11th house, and to me that would make perfect sense about the whole, say, the friendship side of it, and the peer connections and things like that.
Right.
um
Generally speaking,
and,
horaries are
and
done
of
in either
course you're
Regio
right, we were.
Montanus or I think Campanus is what they're called. It really just depends. Like I've not explored
Yeah.
Campanus just yet personally, but uh like I want to share if you want to get into aura related, I got some good reading material for you. It's from a man named William Lilly. William Lilly's Christian Astrology. He
Yeah,
he he was like the progenitor
yeah,
of aura for like the medieval era, and he recommends
yeah.
using Regio Montanus personally, or Campanus, but like if I wonder what it would look like if we put it in whole sign. But let's see what it would look like. Yeah, if we put it in whole
But
sign, Mercury would be right there in the first, Virgo in 12th, Venus in love. Trying to share some values with some friends. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So I was thinking backwards. Yeah, it would all move down. So you're right. Mercury would be first house in Libra. But horary is what gave birth to a lot of our modern house interpretations, right? And a lot of the house significations. What do you understand about the 12th house in horary? Because in classical astrology, that's the malefic house, right? It's the 12th house, and then the 6th house, and then I think the 8th house are considered sort of like the fourth, because the impact that it can have. But what's your understanding of the meaning of the 12th house in horary? Who's there?
Yeah. The 12th house in Orrery, much like how it is the least understood house in non-aurorial astrology, it is considered to be one such an enigma in orrery as well. It can represent prisons, it can represent mental confinement, it can represent spiritual confinement, it can represent a general inexplicable malaise, because orrery doesn't really regard Virgo or Pisces energy very positively. And the thing about the eighth house is that, being naturally ruled by Scorpio, there's a little place. It's called the Via Combusta, the fiery way, La Via Combusta, which is in between 15 degrees Libra and 15 degrees Scorpio. And generally speaking, when the moon is in La Via Combusta, that is considered to be a time to not read the orrery, because the emotions are running a little bit hot. But the eighth house being the
Right.
introduction to occult powers, as it would stand, like, okay, so we're finally waking up into our connection to other people. Like, seventh house is, okay, we're finally starting to explore our connections to other people. Eighth house is, we're getting a little bit deeper with it. Ninth house is where that we're starting to get a little bit educational with it. So once we reach that eighth house over there, with that moon, or once we reach the eighth house period with any questions, we start to see a matter of depth, of intensity, of transformation, of all manner of things that we're just trying to really process, that may be painful in that process, but are necessary to move forward from one spot to another. And I just wanted to, if I can very briefly touch upon something that we just said about the Mars retrograde, like something you said earlier to everyone. Hey, it's a time right now, not just astrologically, but also, yo, Frank, are you still there? You seem to, we haven't banded with. Um, okay, but yeah, I'll wait until he catches back up. I'll tell you, it has been very, very interesting getting this stream in order. It does happen. Alright, so while I wait for him to get back, I'll go ahead and say to the rest of chat, yeah, what we are experiencing right now with this Aries retrograde, we're experiencing a lot of impatience. We're experiencing a lot of obstacles when it comes to getting what we want, especially when Mars is squaring Saturn. The thing about Saturn is, Okay, so here we have Saturn, and at the time of this chart, it's over here in the fourth house. And we have Mars over here in the seventh house, which is sort of, to me, Mars in the seventh house is representative of, oh, hey, welcome back.
Can you? Oh yeah, you said I kept saying, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" It's bandwidth. It's
Yeah,
such a pain in the butt.
we're gonna have
But you
to,
can. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna have to get you plugged into a, is there any way possible you got an Ethernet connection?
I do have an Ethernet connection. I can't put it in my phone though.
Oh yeah, no. Imagine if you could plug an Ethernet cable into a phone. That'd be spicy. Yeah, but
I know. I've got an RJ45 in my on my iPhone.
yeah, like ooh. But yeah, though I'm just doing my best to not sweat it because it's like I could sit here and you know I don't fully comprehend law of attraction, but I can definitely tell you that I could just sit here and I could be a real like I could be a real Debbie Downer, like, all of this stuff is not working. Nothing's making sense right now. Or I can just continue to pick myself up and I can do the best I can to do this live with you. Now, which of the two seems like a preferable option? The latter.
we're we're going to trudge through it,
Oh yes.
and
I'm Leo Sun and Mercury. I might get my boots a little bit muddy, but they still gonna sparkle when I get done with them.
right. So you're Leo, Sun, and Mercury, right? So that would put your Leo stuff in my seventh house. I tend to get along with Leos really well. Just always have. And Leo is a sextile sign to Gemini. So I don't know what it is. Air and fire. I've always got along with fire signs. All my best friends growing up were Sagittarius. I dated a slew of Sagittarius girls in my younger years. And well, and Leos and Aries too, come to think of it.
You never believe
But
like Aries people. That's the hot spot for me, buddy. That's the hot spot for me. But I've also, oddly enough, had a lot of crushes or odd interactions with Capricorns because Capricorn is my fourth house. That's that soft spot. So that but Aries, it's on site with Aries. We be having fun, Aries people. You heard me? Be having some real Martian encounters with some Aries people. Out of space, out of this world. But yeah, to get to get a little bit back on topic real quick. With Mars square Saturn and both of them in their ruling signs at the moment, it's like if somehow on a quantum level you had the two biggest football teams in the world simultaneously playing a match on their home field. So this is some Dragon Ball Z stuff here. This is like Goku versus Frieza. You know what I'm saying? This is it's really it's a really huge, massive energy all in one place. And Aries, now that Mars has gone retrograde, the locus of Mars's energy, like if you can think of Mars as a disco ball, motivating people to dance, motivating people to get up and do something. Now, whereas the disco ball used to be at the center of the discotheque, the disco ball is inside of us now. And it's a little bit comfortable having a whole giant disco ball in your chest or in your head, as Aries would rule it. And so, to such an end, if we look at the energies of Mars square Saturn, so Saturn in Capricorn, that's a Saturn as it gets, really. At least on a like realistic level, we would aspire to be more like Saturn in Libra, but Saturn in Libra of its essence is something that's more to be pursued than it is attainable. But back to the point, though. Saturn in Capricorn is delayed gratification. It's you do your consistent work, you get up every day, you establish your routines, you abide by your disciplines, you follow your ethics, you give no concern to what is right or what is wrong, as is the Capricorn archetype, because Capricorn is an ethical energy more so than a moral energy. And eventually you get your dividend. But Mars is the energy of I want this and I want it now. So when you have these two energies disagreeing with each other, you get people who are very strongly motivated to get something because they've sort of lost patience with having to make, especially in a pandemic. Like, look at it. It's so it can be. Our routines are getting disrupted on a daily basis by a myriad of things that are just popping up here and there. If it's not murder hornets in one month, it's something in another month. And we're truly feeling that at the moment.
And this, yeah, we are. And remember too that Saturn represents our established structures, right? Our established power structures to a certain extent. They have that resonance there. They both represent government and the imposition of structure and will upon other people, right? And when you have Saturn transiting Capricorn, right, and then you have Pluto close by, what kind of generational phenomenon, right, that we're talking about that coincided with major revolutions coming from the 18th century to the 19th century, that we have this again this explosive mix, and at the same time, like you said, the outgoing force of Mars is kind of being turned in on itself, and then you have it in opposition, not in opposition, in square. But the thing about the hard angles, right? If you think about them in terms of geometry, they're all dual, right? They're dyads. They're all, none of them are divisible by three. And everyone knew, or the ancients knew, the ancient builders and such, that the most structurally sound structure was a triangle because it was evenly distributing the weight. Whereas you're having kind of a seesaw teeter-totter thing with the hard aspects. They're in opposition or they're in conflict with one another because of that dual die, you know, that opposing force sort of thing. So you have people inwardly really struggling with the established power structures. And Pluto sweeping through Capricorn, right, is blowing shit up. It is deconstructing. And I mean, think about Pluto too in
Systematically,
relation
nonetheless.
with sorry, say again.
Systematically, nonetheless. You said that Pluto is destroying things at the moment. So, and now said that Capricorn, being a systematic energy that it is, it's destroying things as well. It's destroying it. It is, as they said in the SpongeBob meme, dismantling this establishment board by board.
Right. And there's almost kind of a humorous component to it because you look at what is going on and it's almost so farcical as to be a joke or a sitcom, right? Who would have ever thought that the star of The Apprentice would be our president, you know, and that he would almost inadvertently be contributing to that dismantling. It's almost like everything he does to try and aggrandize himself and his constituency blows up in his face.
Yeah, he's trying to
And
preserve the
I
status quo. We're in Uranus and Taurus right now. That's all. That's all folks are trying to do. Like, you look at the world governments right now. Russia, run by conservatives that are cracking down on progressive values. China, doing the very same with the Uyghurs of like the Muslim Chinese, the Uyghurs. And China is also making incursions into India now. China and India are basically in a soft war right now. Uh, India, and even then, India is a conservative nation as well with a conservative culture. They have their rules and their ways, and anyone who tries to step outside of those ways, they're not gonna like it. And now over here in America, we have Donald Trump. Over in the United Kingdom, we have Boris Johnson. All across the world right now, we are in the throes of a of a machine that is in its swan song. I would like to hope that it is giving us one final last hurrah, one final attempt to put an iron grip on everything. And we're in a lot of earth energy right now too, and not mutable earth energy. We are in cardinal earth energy primarily. Like there's gonna be so many babies born with Capricorn stallions, and then they're gonna have Uranus and Taurus in their charts too. So, but by the time that they have, reached age, 21 years after they are born, Uranus is gonna be 3 signs down in Leo after it's had time to go through Gemini and Cancer. And when Uranus reaches Gemini, Aquarius' erratic cousin. Oh, buddy, we're gonna see a lot of two steps when it comes to progress.
Do you understand that is my time to be when Uranus is conjunct my sun? I'm going to have my Uranus opposition, which typically happens around 40, 39, and 42, more or less. That's when you really kind of, you break out of your old sort of patterns and modes. And it's oftentimes where you start a new career or you embark upon what you always wanted to do. And I'm trying to do that now, actually. I mean, I still have a family and everything else to take care of, and but still, my partner has been really encouraging me to go outside the box and communicate a lot of this stuff. And it's going to be a fun time when Uranus goes into Gemini, and it's going to be opposing my Sag Uranus. So natally, I'm very Uranian. I've got Uranus conjunct Jupiter opposite my Sun conjunct Mars. You could say I'm kind of Martian too, because I got Mars conjunct the Sun, and both are trying my rising.
Oh, there's definitely a
So
Martian infusion there. If you got a conjunct sun like that, it becomes such a corporal part of your identity. Like it's right there incorporated into who you are. Like it pursuits
people
intellectually.
tell me that that's how I see it. I had an astrologer once tell me, "Oh, you must be very competitive," and it's like, well, I don't feel competitive, but everyone knows exactly how I'm feeling. Oh, did you lose
Right.
me?
It's kind of written on your face. Like we, when it comes to competition with a Gemini per se, a Gemini's pursuit of competition. Geminis are very communicative in one way or another. If a Gemini is frustrated with you, they have to have a lot of stum placements to keep stum with you. Like I'm talking about, they have to have a lot of Capricorn or Scorpio in their chart to sort of bury that sort of image of frustration. And interestingly enough, Gemini Mars is my only major Gemini placement. I also have Vesta in Gemini conjunct my Mars, which would explain uh which would explain like why there's so many wise women around me, I guess you might call it. And why I've learned a lot from communication through just observation of wise women, because as I've mentioned before, I'm on the autism spectrum. And I'm not afraid to say that on live, because if someone finds any fault with that, that's more of a statement about themselves than it is with me. But to such an end, social cues and body language were things that sort of went over my head to an extent, while other things were not unnoticed but unexpressed. And so just watching the subtle nuances of communication between people is something that has really helped me understand a lot, because what one's mouth does not say, sometimes one's countenance shall reveal. And the thing about Venus square Mars, I'll tell you, because right now Mars is squaring Venus. Venus just entered Leo, and let's talk about archetypically speaking from the decanates as well, 0 to 10 degrees, 10 to 20, so on and so forth. Let's talk about what makes what would normally be agreeable energies, Aries and Leo. Let's talk about what makes them argue with each other. You see, because I have a similar situation in my chart where my Venus is in air, but my Mars is also in air, but they are in conflict. So let's talk about that. What you say, Frank? I saw your mouth, but I didn't.
What sign is your Venus in?
Uh, four
What sign
degrees
is your?
Libra. 4 degrees Libra.
Oh,
Yep.
4 degrees Libra. Okay.
Yep. So 4 Libra and 26 Gemini. So either the Mars in this regard is behaving like Mars in Cancer, squaring Venus in Libra,
Yeah.
or Venus in Libra is behaving like Venus in Virgo, squaring Mars in Gemini. But yeah,
Right.
let's go ahead.
So,
You about to say?
so that I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's good, man. Like like a 5 second delay between when I speak and when you speak. So I'm just chilling. You feel me? Like I already know this. I'm gonna just come out right and say it. This is a shit show, but
It's okay.
it's a good shit show. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have you on the live. I'm happy to have somebody with your expertise on the live. I already know it's gonna be some little issues with the communication. I'm done stressing about it. I fuck around and get myself a heart attack stressing about this stuff. I'm done. You know what I'm saying? I'm just here to have
Yeah.
fun at this point.
Oh, we're just having fun. And if anything, I tend to
Let the children out the
I'm
room.
Martian. What's that?
I was saying to anybody who watching right now, normally I like to keep my streams as family oriented as possible. But if you got children watching this right now, go ahead and let them out the room, cause you know what I'm saying. We got this mess set up, and it's doing what it's doing. So you know what? I'm gonna try to keep it PG-13, but I'm telling y'all right now, I don't know why it's being like it is, but I'm gonna just let it be. But yeah, go ahead on there, Frank. I'll get back to Mars square Venus in this context in a minute. I disrupted your train of thought so bad. Oh no, I think you're cutting out again because I see your mouth and but I don't hear no words coming out.
Can you can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's just bandwidthing. You might have to move closer to the router, or if somebody's operating a microwave right now, you might want to ask them to don't do that.
Just cutting it.
Eh, 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 eh. It is lagging. It's roboting.
Out.
It's
Yeah, it's just bandwidth. I closed my computer, hopefully, so it's not taking up. Oh, hmm. I'm frozen.
oh well. You're unfrozen on my end, and then you refrozen. Lord, Lord. Um, have I been streaming this whole time? Yes, I have. I'm about to say if I haven't been streaming this whole time, then we I don't know what to say. But yeah, try saying some words right quick. It ain't going. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. Yeah, I'm gonna just try. Let me just get this in about Mars square Venus from a double fire stance. So Mars and Aries at 28 degrees here, it's had plenty of time to go through its Aries phase to establish its independence, which is loosely related to Taurus's archetype of stability. Uh, Aries is like, I've been here. I've been here in Aries, because 28 degrees, that's a lot of experience right there. That's a lot of Aries that you have had to walk through. It's like, I've been doing what I've been doing, and now this little newcomer comes in here thinking that he can just or thinking that they can just show me up and hog all the attention and steal my thunder and be the new fire on the block, when I, as Aries at 28 degrees, I've been here for a minute now. And true to form, Leo at 6 degrees, it hasn't really yet harnessed the Leo archetype. It has been born into the Leo archetype. And if you look in the Hermetic Tarot, if you look at Aries in the third decadent, in the third decan, that would be Four of Wands in the Hermetic Tarot. If you look at Leo in the first decan of the Hermetic Tarot, it'd be Five of Wands. So compare Four of Wands and Five of Wands, for example. We're going from stability, establishment, the house party, to suddenly beating each other with sticks, coming in like a wrecking ball. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
that represents right now how, because Venus also represents what we desire and what we value. It's just the feminine side of affairs, because Venus isn't particularly aggressive. She protects and holds valuable certain things, but she doesn't go out of her way to get to get it out of the mud like Mars does. Mars is like, if I want something, I'll go after it. And Venus is like, if I want something, I'll attract it. That's that yin and that yang. So we have things that we want, and we're coming into an understanding of what we want right now with Venus at 6 degrees Leo. We're like, we want beauty, but we don't know what the shape of that beauty is. But Aries is like, I want it, and I want it now, and I've been wanting it for a while, and I've kind of hit my stride about how I want it, and I don't understand why we suddenly changing the script. Versus Venus and Cancer squaring Mars and Aries, which is a desire for soft things, a desire for security, a desire for a loving environment, but pursuing that desire for a loving environment through a very aggressive way. Like, you get Aries and Cancer mixed together, that's like an
Yeah,
aggressive Care Bear. So that
yeah.
that's
Well,
where we're at
and
right now.
don't forget that Cancer energy is still cardinal.
Yep.
It initiates, still very powerful energy. So even though we might think of it as soft and whatnot, it's also still, it is the it's kind of the zenith of the water signs. It's where things begin esoterically. We're told in the tradition of Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey that souls first incarnate in the sign of Cancer. That's where we begin, kind of, and that's the nascent baby consciousness. And you think about the fourth house and Cancer as the waters of birth. It would make sense that we're given birth through the sign of Cancer. But back to what you're saying about Mars and Venus. Venus is, that's how we relate to people. So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you were saying there's a desire component to it. It's what we value, but it's not like Mars, and it's outwardly uh, pursuing something. Venus is about the recognition of something similar in oneself with someone else. And that's what a relationship is. A relationship is a recognition.
A
It's the
resonance.
a resonance. Yeah, you're establishing a point of contact with something else or someone else. Venus and Leo. The interesting thing about Venus going into Leo, be looking at everyone in relation to ourselves, our sense of self, and how we appreciate our our own kind of inner nature and how we experience ourselves. That's going to take primacy. Everyone's going to be a little bit selfish lately. And it's interesting when things square each other and they're in the same element, right? Because it feels like, well, gee, they should be harmonious. In classical astrology, I think even in horary they do this too, right? Where if things are in the same element, they're still considered trine.
Yep, they
And
call that
um,
triplicity.
the triplicity, right? And then there's also the thing with the sextiles, with say air and fire and water and earth. You know,
Sextiles can be
um,
extended into
so
squares, and squares can be extended into triads. It just depends upon what the Lord of the hour is at the moment. Like you said, you in Aquarius
right,
rising, right? You're in Aquarius
exactly.
rising. During when Aquarius is on the horizon, there is a bit of stretching going on. Generally speaking, in Aries, when Aquarius is on the horizon, squares can get stretched into triangles, and sextiles can get stretched into squares, which sort of speaks to the perceived peculiarity of Aquarius. Because I know I have an Aquarius rising friend. That's my best friend. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, they weird folk, but they're a good kind of weird. You feel me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've been called weird many, many times, and I think it's also the Iranian thing. But like you were saying, there are some conflicting energies going on. And of course, going back to what we were saying with history right now, the way it is, you were mentioning authoritarian governments earlier when we were having some technical issues. And what it is, there's a big conservative backlash all over the world, indicative of Pluto and Saturn transiting Capricorn. And for me,
While
that's the
holding
12th
Jupiter
house,
hostage.
right? That's the stuff.
So I would say
While
while
holding
holding.
Jupiter hostage.
Yeah.
But Jupiter is like our saving grace there, because Jupiter also gives a little pressure valve release, and Jupiter brings a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of good luck.
You think
It's
it
putting some
tempers?
soul.
So you would
What's
you
that?
would believe then that Jupiter's presence in Capricorn and in retrograde adjacent to Pluto and Saturn provides those relatively malefic energies a degree of temperance? Is that what you're saying?
I am. I know that Jupiter is ill dignified in Capricorn,
By
and
modern standards, I consider it to be worse in Virgo.
sure. But to me, Jupiter is always a benefic, right? In
Yes.
classical astrology, Venus and Jupiter tend to always be benefic energies. And even the squares with Venus and Jupiter tend to be somewhat benefic, or at least easier than, say, squares of other planets, right?
They
There's,
are
if
excesses
anything,
that require balance.
correct. Usually there's a tendency to excess with Jupiter, or there's a tendency with Venus to get either too aloof, clingy. It's having your attention either too invested or not invested enough. Because Venus in relationship, right? Attention is the main way we express that. It's where we put what you value is where you put your attention, right?
Yes.
So I think of the second house, and I think of Venus too, as also being indicative of that. It's our personal resources. The one big personal resource we have is attention. So just thinking about all this stuff, again, you were mentioning authoritarian governments, and this is their time to sort of um, to try and make their death throes, if you will. I know that sounds a bit optimistic, but it's a lot more violent and difficult than it sounds, because when you're aware that your power is waning and declining, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure it doesn't. And that's why we see crackdowns, I think.
Oh, I
We just had
agree.
Saturn go,
I was
right?
saying that once Uranus conjoins our goal at 26 degrees Taurus, roughly at September 2020, 2023, we're going to. It's coming. And not to get too terribly political, but I will say this: a government can only continue as long as it is allowed to. If people become sufficiently frustrated with a government to such an end that they no longer wish to be a part of that governing entity, and such violence erupts that it creates, in the worst case scenario, complete and total erasure. In the best case scenario, a revolution in which a better form of government is instated. Either way, the outcome is the same. That a governing body is no governance at all if it has no one or nothing to govern. So the people
That's
being
correct.
the people being governed have to either their desire to remain where they are or to find comfort in whatever they're dealing with has to exceed their discomfort with the situation. So, regardless of whatever outcome comes to pass, there shall be a change. Just as these planets continue to move, there is an inevitability. I just,
You're
I would,
exactly right.
I would prefer that whatever is inevitable to be the more desirable thing, a revolution versus complacency onto fading and wasting. I think a revolution would be a much favorable alternative. But again, not to get too political.
Of course, and we would hope that any big change that would happen would be as painless as possible too, and that the least amount of people would be adversely affected. But you're right that the discomfort has to outweigh the comfort in order for people to do things usually, right?
Yeah. I have a question for you, Frank. So take it to we've been live for about an hour now, even though a good chunk of it has been taken up by technical difficulties. My question for you, if someone from the audience was asking how to deal with the current Mars retrograde uh, hard T square energy between it and Venus, what would be your
Mhm.
suggestion
My suggestion, well,
to
let's
excuse
break
me
it.
to handle it? Yeah, to handle this transit.
So, are we talking about the Mars and Venus transit happening right now, and what could be affecting someone's natal chart? Yeah.
No, we're more specifically talking about how to handle this Mars retrograde transit. While Mars is in retrograde now, while the disco ball is
Yeah.
inside of you, what would be your suggestion to handle that?
So there's several things. Right now, everyone needs to what's my answer to everything? My answer to everything is always consciousness. That is my answer to everything. But let me break down what I mean by that in this context, right? Like I said earlier, like we were both agreeing, everyone's going to feel more on edge. Everyone's going to be more agitated. We're going to be very quick to share sharp words with people closest to us. And we could very easily disrupt and destroy very valued and special relationships with our friends and family if we're not careful. So I would say the number one thing that everyone needs to do is check yourself and check your internal atmosphere to be aware of your mood, your state, and the effects that you have on other people around you. Because the reason why we have mass effects like this, where we have violence or we have upheavals or what have you, is because people are unconsciously being acted upon in mass, right? And these massive energies that are moving people. Now, what is the cure for unconsciousness? It's consciousness. That comes from being self-aware as much as you can, right?
Yes.
Trying to reflect as much as possible. I would say meditation. And I've been bad with my meditation lately, I know, but everyone should be meditating, regularly. Even just 5 minutes, right? Maybe just on the weekdays, you know,
I really have to
wake
just
up.
take some time to let myself breathe sometimes.
Right. And when you don't do that, right, you're more apt to have reaction. No?
Oh yeah. Now, that is a very good answer. Thank you for that. I'd like to very quickly go over if you have Mars transiting through the houses, because Mars also shows us what we challenge, where we take the fight to, and how we take the fight to it.
Right.
So, for those of you who have Mars transiting through your first house right now, you might be a little bit too hard on yourself at the moment. You might be beating yourself up, feeling a strong desire to push yourself beyond the limits that you've already experienced. And I will tell you that you will need to temper that. Do not at this time challenge yourself to such an extent that you break yourself. With Uranus over there in Taurus, and with Mars being as afflicted as it is right now, challenging yourself like that can potentially lead to disaster. So do it with a touch of temperance. For those of you
Yeah, and
who go, oh, I'm going all the way through the houses. If you want to add on to it, go ahead.
you were, yeah, I just wanted to say people who have Mars transiting their first house right now are Aries rising, right?
Yeah.
And so, how would it feel being an Aries rising and having your chart ruler retrograde going through your first house? It would feel like you had the brakes put on you. You'd feel kind of stifled, wouldn't you? It's
Oh
not a
yeah.
comfortable position for an Aries rising who wants to lunge out typically, right?
You've already had that masculine and that dominant injection into your identity, into your effect, and now with that energy being much closer to home, and even walking a step backwards, one might say, uh, that is an unexpected item in the bagging area, there, Chief. That is definitely an unexpected item in the bagging area. So, for
Uh,
those of us who have Mars transiting the second house, right now, you might feel like you don't own enough. You might also, being that the second house ruled by Taurus, it's got Venusian aspect to it. You might feel like there's something wrong with your possessions. You might even become destructive to your possessions. So understand that your status in life on an economic level, especially in a capitalist system, is no definition of your value as a person. And even despite that, on the one hand, you have to be careful with your possessions on the other. This is a great time to review your possessions. This is a great time to review second house in Aries matters, which Frank, you know a little something about second house in Aries.
Oh yeah, well these people are Pisces rising, aren't they? You know, and so these are the martyrs of the world. These are the people who are very accustomed to self-sacrifice, to giving themselves up for others, right? And so when Mars is transiting their second house and the second house in Aries, this is again telling them, like you just said, right? These people need to feel their self-value. And so as Mars is transiting the second house and it's retrograde inner focused, this is a great time for them to appreciate their virtues, right? And to feel their own value and to feel their personal value. Venus is in Leo, right? And that's all about your self value. It's about self esteem. And Pisces risings, what resource could they always use more of? Self esteem. Well, that's my impression anyway.
Yeah, I get you with the Pisces, right? I think that another thing that Pisces rising people could use, because Pisces rising people seem like shapeshifters to me. They have one appearance one day and another appearance the next. It's that Neptunian rule. Pisces rising also needs some cutting through the clouds of confusion. So, especially since let's see how well. Let's see what Neptune is looking like right now. It's in Pisces, also in retrograde at the moment. So
Yes.
Pisces rising people are kind of double going through it in that regard, because we're at that stage again where we have six retrograde planets and Chiron's retrograde. So I don't know if we'll ever see a time where we'll witness the legendary eight planet retrograde, and I'd kind of be scared if we did. But yeah. Now on the people who have Mars in third, or Mars transiting their third house right now, this is a great time to temper your tongue. This is a great time to just understand that you might be experiencing a lot of verbal hostility from a lot of people who are close to you, be them siblings or your next door neighbors or anybody who you just communicate with on a short distance basis. And so that's something that you might want to watch out for with the Mars transit in third right now in retrograde. For those of you who have Mars in fourth, you got to be careful to not be indecisive or overly meek, because right now, for those of you who have Mars in fourth, you're going to experience the world just trying to run over you. I've had clients before in my personal readings, they have Mars in fourth, and like I've had one personal client, they had Mars conjunct Saturn and Pluto in their fourth house, and they had a lot of they took a lot of crap from family. They family certainly treated them any old kind of way. And this is a time to really revalue. If you have Mars transiting fourth right now, this is a time to revalue how you protect your family. Is your family protecting you? You know, is your family being nice to you? Are you being nice to your family at the moment? Are you really connecting with your soul tribe in a healthy way? You got anything that you want to say
May,
there?
may I?
Go ahead.
I just read for a client who has Mars transiting her fourth house right now, and she's also in a fourth house perfection year. And as soon as, well, right around the Mars retro, in between that and the Pisces full moon, she had an explosive fight with her partner, and they both broke up after a long relationship. So that's something else just to be looking out for with that Mars transiting the fourth house, is just explosions around the home, and difficulty with your home base folks, your partners and your children, that stuff. And again, that goes back to just watch your words. Watch your words. We hurt the ones we love quite often, right?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing about Mars and fourth. Some would argue that to an extent that's like having Mars in Cancer. And what Mars in Cancer struggles with is being the sign opposite of Capricorn. What it struggles with is consistency and application of that Martian energy. Like one minute Mars in Cancer can be very defensive and shelled up, and the next minute it can be very highly confrontational, being explosive, like what you just said here. So when you have Mars in Aries in that house, you got a whole steam eruption just waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think that's a perfect segue to the next house, which is a fun house, isn't it?
Yeah. You feeling good, Frank? You doing all right over there?
I'm doing good. I'm just sitting as close to the router as possible.
I got you. I think it's working for the most part. But yeah, so if you have Mars in fifth, you might be experiencing a whole bunch of like this. Especially goes out to the children who have Mars in fifth. You might be experiencing a whole bunch of crap from your teachers right now. You might be experiencing a whole bunch of crap from your friends. And period, if you have Mars transit in fifth right now, you might be experiencing a strong desire to be competitive, and you might be experiencing certain restlessness with tasks or with just your hobbies and your video games and your whatnot right now. There might be an inner degree of restlessness, feeling like, oh, it don't do me like it used to now. I got to do something else. Or be wanting to throw the keyboard if you lose a game of League of Legends or something. Don't do that now, Mars and Fifth transits right now. For those of y'all who are dealing with Mars in sixth retrograding right now, you might experience significant hostilities in the workplace, or you might be getting very, very bored with your routine. So now is a great time to assess whether or not you're working at the right job, whether you've worked yourself into the right routine on a daily basis and get that routine back well established. Because some of y'all who have somehow, some way, I'm telling you, somehow, some way, some of y'all who have Mars transiting your sixth house right now are also going to have Neptune transiting your sixth house, and it's going to make it real hard to keep those routines up and running. There's a few people out there like that, especially them people with them interceptor houses. If we ain't doing whole houses, I know you like your whole houses. You wanna chime in on that, any?
Yeah, well, Yeah, real quick. I mean, on the sixth house too, like you said, is job routines, and this is a wonderful time for people who feel like they've lost the meaning in what they do. Because oftentimes a sixth house Saturn or even a sixth house Pluto, quite frankly, it's easy for those natives to feel like they're doing something just for the sake of doing it because they've always done it. And so Mars transiting in retrograde, like you said, that's inwardly focused. It puts the pain in your heart, trying to find the meaning in things again. So my best recommendation for those people is to try and recognize, be here now, be present, and recognize the magic in every moment. It's just if you pay attention to it. And you just came from the fifth house, that's the childlike house. That's where the children, right, they see the magic in everything. And fifth house, I have my sun and Mars in the fifth house. We tend to want to have fun. So try and find things that are fun during this time. Don't distract yourself, but try and substitute interesting, fun, and lighthearted things for all that heavy handed routine and boringness, right? What do you think about that?
I would agree with it. If you are struggling with the mundacity of life at the moment, evaluate why your life is so mundane and try to inject a little bit of whimsy and wonder into that. Now, for the spicy people like me, if you have Mars transiting your seventh house at the moment, beware conflicts and general uneasiness from anybody and everybody. There's gonna be people, they like people who wasn't saying anything to you before, people who normally would not be all up in your face acting some type of way to you. Oh, it's finna be a riot, buddy. Like if you got Mars transiting your seventh right now, my advice is somebody who does have Mars transiting his seventh house and somebody who generally finds himself already waking up at a baseline state of being annoyed with everyone and everything. Pick your battles. Pick your battles. Understand that you dealing with Martian injection. That Martian energy is being injected into your house of partnerships and your known enemies. You gonna naturally be annoyed at some things, but it's your decision how you respond to those annoyances. And me personally, I'm doing. It might just be the Libra tendencies because I not only have Libra rising, I have Libra moon and Venus as well. So my intentions my approach is to be accommodating until I can. Like if you like people think that Aries dominant people is a shit show when they get mad. Push a Libra dominant person all the way there. Go because it takes a lot of effort to get a Libra dominant person to come out of character. Like you gotta be trying to get a Libra dominant. See, look at me talking all menacing right now. That's that Mars in seventh house. See what I'm talking about? That's exactly what I'm talking about with that Mars in seventh house energy. You gonna be ready. Everybody gonna be ready to fight you. You gonna be ready to fight everybody. So just just isolate yourself if you got to. Take a chill pill. Just be mindful of seeing yourself going a direction and stop yourself from going that direction before you get there. You see how I got there, Frank? I'm just like, oh, I'm sitting, like I didn't even notice it for a moment. I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, well, I wish a person would come at me on some mess right now, cause I'm raring the clown right now. I would like, I'm like, wait a minute, calm down. It ain't even that
All
serious.
lined up.
What's up?
You got itchy knuckles, right?
Yeah, and it's like I don't even like conflict. I really don't. But like I be getting tired of like people thinking that they can just walk all over me and whatever. Even though that ain't got, even though my personal situation ain't got nothing to do with this life. I'm just saying, like, as a person with Mars in seventh house, like transiting at the moment, my natal Mars is in ninth. As someone with Mars transiting in the seventh house right now, I really be looking at people like, you, and this is a general statement, mind you. Just looking at people like, you really just did that, huh? You really just tried to play me. All right. But yeah, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, well, you touched on a lot. And you can tell that you're very passionate about the Mars transiting the seventh house. I just think it's interesting that you and I are both Libra moons, number one. Thank goodness you are with Mars transiting your seventh house, right? And because these are risings, and actually Libra dominant, is that true?
Yeah, I have Libra moon rising in Venus. Libra's my chart ruler. So,
Yep, and Libra is my second most dominant sign after Sagittarius. I've got the Moon, Saturn, and Pluto all in Libra, all conjunct in this wonderful stellium there, and the ninth house for me. You on all the diplomacy stuff, and thank goodness we have that. Mars is going through my third house right now, so quick to spit out some words, right? And
oh,
the seventh house is not a lot different, except like you hinted at, you could easily disrupt relationships when Mars is transiting your seventh house. And
tell me
you
how your
mentioned
third
open.
house experience is going. Tell me how your third house experience is going. I want to know if I was anywhere near accurate with what I say about my
I
third house. Like you,
oh,
what you say just now? Yeah, cut out.
well, I was just gonna say that the third house experience. I mean, kind of like you were indicating. There's a very the third house is communication, right? I mean, we're going to be very impulsive with our words, which again is why I said watch what you say. And my partner noticed that I've been a bit terse lately, and I've been a bit quick to. I don't typically get mad or angry or erupt or lose my temper, but to the extent that I do, it's been a bit pronounced lately. So I've been very quick to say to my daughter, "Hey, put that down," or like, "Hey, hold on," or "You come," I'm a little bit more demanding and commanding lately. So I've just been trying to watch it. I've been very short with little things being misplaced around the house. The third house it's not our house like the fourth house, but it's our immediate community, and
Yeah.
like our day-to-day. It's trips to the store, right? It's the places we go are short and our
It's what we bring into the
I
fourth house, given proximity. It's what we bring into the fourth house.
right, and the IC's right there, no? And
Yeah.
typically, right? And I've been noticing for me, I've been making extra trips to the store. I forgot my wallet one day when I was at the store with my daughter, and they didn't take Apple Pay, you know,
Oops.
and we had to drive back home to get the wallet, go back, get our cart. It's been little shit like that. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cuss. Stuff like
That's
that.
that. That's that Mars in third house. What we gonna do?
Been frustrations with the daily routine. Everything's been taking longer. All
Oh
my
God,
all my little
yes.
errands,
Oh God, yes. Like I don't even like going to get fast food no more. Them lines be too long for me. But yeah, let's come back. let me let me run through the remaining five houses real quick so that everybody can get themselves a
Yeah.
little bit of information. So, for those of you who have Mars transiting 8 right now in retrograde, you're going to be going through a lot of internal changes. The eighth house is all about death, sex, and taxes. You know, the unavoidable things that are necessary for life that we don't necessarily have out in the open. You know, like as much as the eighth house is other people possessions, it can also be hidden possessions as well. And further compounded by the fact that Scorpio is also a ruler of Mars, and further compounded by the fact that this is an internalized energy in a house that's about internalization. You can be experiencing a whole bunch of inner turmoil regarding a few things like that. And especially with Mars in eighth house, you gotta be careful right now because that's a deathly injection right there. Like that's people or things that are likely to bring you some death being a little bit more aggressive. And because now that injection of aggressiveness is coming from within, you might be a little bit blindsided to that. For those of you who have Mars transiting your ninth house right now, especially if you are a university student or you are a person that generally engages in some form of just like get-togethers with people, all be them virtual or be them in real life, you got to be more careful in those areas right now. You might feel like the body, the educating body that you have matriculated into is a little bit more aggressive right now. You might feel like you might be more prone to road rage at the moment. You might feel more dissatisfied in the work, in not the workplace, in the home life right now. Like you might have ants in the pants and be ready to like get moving, and you just feel like you can't really get moving. For those of you who have Mars in 10th, similar to Mars in 6th right now, you might be evaluating and second, really, because those are the Earth houses. You might be evaluating where you at in life right now, whether or not you have made your mark on life, whether or not your career is in order. So you got to be careful about that if you got Mars in 10th. For those of you who have Mars in 11th, be very careful about your friends, your friend group, and be very careful about being too selfish at this time because the 11th house is a house of humanitarian aid. And it's also a house of your friends, recreational and social recreation. So you got to be exceptionally careful right now about what sort of company you keep. Be careful of daredevil activity. And also, for those of you who got Mars in 11th, mind your vibrations because Mars in 11th in Horary is also the house of granted wishes. So be careful what you wish for because with all that Mars energy making you ask for stuff, you just might mess around and get something you didn't even know that you was bringing to yourself because you was like, oh, I just wish this person would just keel over and do this and do that. And you don't even see it happening before it's too late. And lastly, for those of you who have Mars in 12th, work on healthy expressions of your anger. When Mars transits your 12th house, that can indicate a suppression of Mars energy, feeling like you can't express yourself or your anger or go after things you want as much as you normally do. You might feel like the anger is isolating you. You might feel a little bit lost in the sauce right now because you got this angry energy inside of you. You don't know where it's coming from or why it's there. So this is a great time to work artistically through expressing your Martian ales. Did you want to contribute anything to those houses, Frank? I'm sorry, I just had to run through them real quick each because we could talk for days about stuff. I know it, like we got that report going on, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I just wanted to run through those real quick.
No, you're good, and that was all good stuff, and especially I think what you hit on with the ninth house, and again, I'm real partial to ninth house because I'm a ninth house stellium. When you have a Mars in your ninth house and it's retrograde like that, you should be really stimulated to kind of get new books or embark on a new kind of philosophical journey or really go deep into something, like this is a time, really the ninth house rules astrology and astrologers. For people who are interested in astrology to really take their extra time to read and to digest what they're doing. do free readings for people if you're into astrology, just for fun. Like we're in all these groups, you know, we're so fond of posting our charts, right? And saying, "Hey, roast my chart, give me a free reading." Why don't we pay it forward, and test our skills out on friends of ours that are interested or want to hear it. And I
Oh,
think
I
it's a great
wholeheartedly
opportunity.
agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I'm about to make a meme in a minute. You know that old blue car that be drifting up the highway?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm finna make a meme that say real deep valuable astrology on the way going forward. And then the way where the car drifting and be like, Lol, guess my big three. Cause look, now I don't care. I'll say it out loud because I tell you, all I see in the astrology groups is people posting their charts, talking about some, can you explain this? Like you just posted a whole chart and you like, can you explain this? I'm like, bro, I charge 120 for my full natal chart readings. You know I got that Mars transit 7th house energy right now, so hold me back if I'm getting too spicy here, but I'm just trying to tell it like it is one time. Cause I've been sitting on this for as long as I've been sitting on it, and people think if people feel like I'm talking about them, I'm talking about them. And if they got a problem with that, then let's have a nice civil conversation about that. But I feel like a lot of people they go into astrological affairs and they'll just post their chart and they'll be like, explain this. I'm like, what part of this would you like to be explained? What part of this are you having difficulty with? Or they'll just post a picture and be like, lol, guess my big three. You have no idea how many posts a day I see in these astrological. I'm not even going to be specific about this group, but like, I see like 50 posts a day of like, guess my big three or roast my chart. So I'm right there with you, Frank. I hope I didn't step too hard on nobody's
yeah.
toes. I'm just Zay tired, man. I had to. I gotta. Everybody else out here
No,
speaking their mind. Why can't I speak my mind? You feel me? Hold up. Repeat that last, cause I see your mouth moving, but
and
I don't hear
we
no
all
no.
started off. Well, can you hear me? Did I freeze again?
You back in order now.
Can you hear me?
You back in order now.
Very good. Yeah. So we all started out in relatively the same place, right? We all started off with just knowing our sun sign, lucky our moon and our rising at some point. So we could have a little bit of sympathy and empathy and understanding for people who are, you know, coming at us without knowing. And we can always gently kind of encourage them in a certain way and be like, well, you can look all that stuff up yourself like I did, over lots and lots of years, right?
Yeah.
Master your own chart. Really,
Yeah.
everyone
Like
needs to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
like don't get me wrong. I don't want to just like put people in. I don't want to like verbally put people in the grave for just like posting their charts. And I'm just saying like I to rephrase what I said earlier into a much more mature way of expressing it. I would appreciate if people who are interested in tarot and astrology uh, asked like if they just gave us a tiny modicum to start from, like what is it in your chart that you would like us to explain? Would you like to talk about your moon and how it is interacting with the rest of your chart, since your moon is your emotional locus? Would you like to talk about your Mercury, since that's how you think? Where would you like us to start? You okay? Hello? Okay, I can hear you now, I
yeah,
think.
did I freeze again?
Yeah, I think so.
Did
Yeah, it's
I
doing it.
freeze? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Am I back?
Yes.
Bandwidth. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Nope.
Yes, I can hear you. Oh Lord, I think that we're having a ping pong. Uh, try saying. Hold on. Let me try to. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna disconnect the call and reconnect. All right. Let me try reconnecting the call. Hello. We might just have to turn off the camera for the time being. I can't quite hear you. Well, yeah, that was. Oh my! I keep, bruh. How am I gonna run this podcast? I'm not gonna lie. Y'all are witnessing like this is almost Mercury retrograde right now. Like this, like what y'all are witnessing right now is like when Mercury stops becoming words, it starts becoming actions. Like you witnessing it right now. That's all I'm saying. Like what I think I'm gonna do is go ahead and end the podcast here. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you all of you who like my channel. I do apologize for the technical difficulties that have been experienced today. I can't say that they won't happen again. We got 6 retrogrades in the sky, so I promise you, just it is what it is. Know that I do my best to bring y'all some entertaining and informative content on a regular basis, and that I do appreciate all of you who have stayed with me through the technical difficulties.
Oh,
Thank
wait.
you.
Here we go.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, we might just have to let the camera off for now.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So you were on about the moon, right? I only caught a little bit of it because I was cutting in and out.
Gotcha. No, what I was trying to tell people, what I was trying to say is that to temper my earlier statements, I understand uh the kind of naive cluelessness that comes with just finally getting more than a toe wet in the pool that is astrology. So what I'm saying is that I encourage people who post their charts across these various groups to say more than what do you think of this or some general statement like that. I think that if people, what I'm saying is, I think that if people uh, took a specific portion of their chart and use that as the place to start from and get that momentum when they post their
Yeah.
chart, they would get much more helpful, frequent, and informative reactions to it.
Right. Because think about this. If someone just came up to you and said, "Hey, uh, my phone isn't working. Fix it for me," you'd be like, "Hell no! Fix your own damn thing," right? But if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I really appreciate your knowledge, your expertise. I did some research here. I figured out that I could try this, or that, but none of it's working. Could you help me with this particular thing?" Like at least it shows that you took a bit of initiative. It shows that you are actually interested, and you're not just asking for someone to do the work for you while you passively sit around and try and absorb it by osmosis, right? You want to know that people care and put at least a degree of effort in like you did, no?
Oh yeah. I That's the thing. Like when I learned that there was more to me than my sun sign as a lead, I don't even remember how I even got here because let me tell you, that Mercury square North Node in my natal chart, that's some real stuff. Like sometimes you be places you don't even remember how you got the, especially with that Mercury square Pluto. You go so deep down a rabbit hole, you wake up in China.
Oh, I feel you that. Well, see, Mercury aspecting Pluto is very similar to a ninth house Pluto. I see a lot of similarities. And you know what's interesting to me is doing charts professionally for people, and you see certain resonances between certain placements, right? Some similarities psychologically. And I have a ninth house Pluto, and I notice that people with hard aspects of Mercury to Pluto, like the square of the opposition, or even the conjunction. I think my dad had the conjunction. They tend to go very deep into stuff like a ninth house Pluto. They will tend to research obsessively, and they'll develop very deep seated opinions and understandings based on their research. And believe me, they'll typically fight like hell or argue like hell those opinions or those understandings. My lovely partner here who just woke up, she's got Mercury opposite Pluto, and it's a similar thing. We're both kind of obsessive about the occult and hidden things. I know that you research pretty in depth, right?
Oh yes.
And we could be very forceful communicators typically.
Oh yes. I'm just editing the title to this this live over here. I'm just like, yeah. Sarah Wildx says, "Thank you for talking about this." Oh, you very welcome, Sarah. Thank you for liking the page and joining the Tarot Nova. Huh? I really appreciate anytime I get some new folks on board. And if you like what you're hearing, feel free to tell your friends and bring them on over yonder. But yeah, back to what you were saying, Frank. Yeah, that ninth house Pluto that you got right there. So what I have heard a ninth house Pluto described as is never truly feeling at home or at rest, because the ninth house being Sagittarius and Pluto Pluto's energy in there being like, I got to move, I got to go for something, I gotta have something to be focused on in the moment to just like, give me that
Yeah.
stimulus that I need.
Yeah. For me though, the journey's on the inside. It's not an outside. Yeah, you're right. I'm never at rest and I'm never at home, but I'm never at home in my current understanding. You know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm.
always something new to learn, and there's always a deeper way to go. You know, that's kind of
Oh,
how I experience it. It's like you could never understand enough. There's always a new level to understanding something in a different way. The ironic part about that is I've been accused of being dogmatic quite a bit too, because when I
mm.
do get an understanding, I get very, very sometimes aggressive about it. Maybe aggressive is the wrong word, but I get excited and passionate.
You're like, hey, I have studied this thing, and this is how I see it as it is because I studied it for this long. So I want you to know that this is how it is.
Right. And ninth house Pluto is also called the firebrand preacher, the you know, the fire and brimstone from the pulpit.
Mm.
You're going to hell. And I don't consider myself a firebrand preacher in that way, but I do kind of consider myself an evangelist for the occult. I get very excited about it and passionate about it. And, I can be pretty forceful when I'm talking about some of my cherished understandings that I've arrived at. But the whole thing about a ninth house Pluto is that those understandings are going to change drastically, and that's the point. We're supposed to be a new creature. We're supposed to learn new things, and we're supposed to grow and develop, right?
Right. Now, I have Pluto in second house myself, and I'll tell
Right.
you, I feel like that. I feel like wherever Pluto goes in your chart. So this is how I described it to somebody. Say that you have the problem of alcoholism. And that
Hmm.
problem is describable through Mars, Pluto, and Saturn. So Mars as an alcoholic is the violent drunkard. He's they keep themselves in check when they ain't drinking, but when they get on that courage sauce, they ready to fight everybody and everything, but they good as long as they don't get on their sauce. Now,
Right.
Saturn is the reformed alcoholic. Saturn is the alcoholic that goes through Alcoholics Anonymous. They done been through it before. They like, well, I know how it is, and I choose to stay away from alcohol because I know how my Mars, being the lesser malefic, Saturn is the greater malefic. I don't want to necessarily call Saturn a greater evil, but like an evolution, an understanding of some things. You feel me? Like I know that I can't drink like I used to because if I drink like that, it's gonna mess me up. But Pluto
Yeah.
is the no matter if you stop drinking, the urge is always there. It's the lifelong urge. It's the lifelong transformation that's going on. And I'll tell you, as somebody who has Pluto in the second house at 25 degrees, just 6 degrees off of a conjunction with my North Node, well, just 6 degrees away from my North Node in Scorpio, conjunct Nessa's 6 degrees away, which is a whole like, I could show you some things. It's a whole nother story. But point
Oh,
of the
good.
yeah, when you got Pluto conjunct North Node, that's kind of like a punch in the face. But
It is. Yeah. But it's
yeah,
also, it can be an omen too. It can be a good omen, that it really ultimately all the discomfort that we have to endure in life is for our own self development, which sounds sort of, I guess it could sound glib, and it could sound kind of cold, I suppose. But some of the esotericists have called Earth the graduate school of pain and suffering, And ironically, we learn love and compassion through having pain and suffering inflicted upon us because it makes us aware of our influence on other people through how people negatively affect us.
you you
You know,
you tell me, and go ahead and use some of that third house Mars blunt honesty. Am I just screwed?
are you screwed? Well, I don't know. I mean, are any of us just screwed? The whole purpose, right? The reason why we study astrology, and this is me talking here. This isn't, you know, this is from the Book of Frank. But my understanding, the reason why we even study astrology in the first place is to master ourselves, not to be mastered by the chart or to be passively influenced by the planets and the forces they represent, but rather to become aware of all these parts of ourselves and take accurate and objective stock of the crayons we have in our crayon box, the crayons we were given to color with this life. I think that's what I told you last time, that we see the tools we have available and we do our best to apply those tools consciously and constructively. And we get tested in life. And if we make the decision or have the intention to be um, to be of service, I guess, to be developing, to be embarking on this sort of path. If you're interested in astrology and esotericism and the occult, the chances are you probably have, an inner desire to grow and to develop and to find these hidden parts of yourself. It's very enticing, I think, right? All these sorts of things, they're very seductive because they all hold the promise of a realization or uncovering hidden knowledge. And of course, that desire is what sort of eggs us on. But there's the old adage, right? That curiosity killed the cat. And these are dangerous sort of avenues to participate in if you're not prepared for the consequences. And the consequences are always inflicted on the personal self, because that's what stands in the way of these universal realizations that we're kind of after. And I think people who are interested in this direction kind of have, perhaps like you've expressed, sort of this innate understanding that we're all one, right? That all beings are internally related and that we have a common source. And we are interconnected and that implies that we all have a certain responsibility to each other, you know, and that's the basis or foundation for the whole concept of love, right? And Plato distinguished between all these different types of love. But, you know, it even says in the Bible, no greater love hath a man than this, you know, that someone would lay down his life for his friends. It's that awareness of our common purpose, you know, and of our interconnection and our common responsibility for each other. So I just mentioned that because that is the reason why we study astrology. Number one, to find out who we are, and number two, to find out how we relate to others and with our source. And can we start to feel those things as a reality, right? Because this gets into very nebulous territory. An empiricist would say, well, how do you prove that? How do you prove astrology? Well, it's a philosophy. It has an ontology, right? Meaning it has a being or a way of existence, and it has its own epistemology, right? Or the mode of perception, the way you know what you know. And so for someone who hasn't experienced the validity of astrology like you have, right, it wouldn't be valid for you. So we have this kind of like philosophical tautology that things are only valid for people for whom they are valid. And it sounds strange to say, but am I wrong that if you haven't understood something, then you don't understand it, right? Kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So if this stuff is proved to you through your experience, that's when it becomes valid. Through experiencing, like, oh my gosh, this Mars transit really did this to me, and I saw this, and I felt it, you know, and I can describe it unequivocally.
That's
That's
why.
kind of
That's why
where,
I don't even get frustrated when people be like, "Oh, astrology is a crock." I'm like, "You gonna find out?
oh yeah,
You gonna find out?"
yeah. And if they don't find out, they probably, you know, I almost want to say they weren't meant to, but
They
not
gonna be
every
right here on Earth next lifetime, finding out some more with some nodal
right,
squares and some Saturn retrograde in their chart.
right.
They might mess around and get some direct north nodes while they at it. You don't want that.
Oh yeah, oh
Like I be looking at my chart. I'm like, Lord, have like, hold, like I be looking at my chart. I'm just like, Lord have mercy. How much nonsense can you shoehorn in here? But then I'll be like, all right, at least I ain't got a direct north node. That means I ain't gotta deal with all this all at once. You know,
right.
I can hit the save spot and come back later if it's a long journey.
It's a long journey. Well, you know, like I told you, both my girl and I, we have an abundance of retrograde planets. Typically, that means that we're doing some stuff over. You know, that we're repracticing. You know, and
Oh yeah.
this journey is trial and error. No, I mean we're all just hopefully we're trying our best and doing our best.
So
But some of
your answer to my question then really about am I screwed is to make your answer short is it's only if you want to be.
the your life is what you make it.
Yeah.
And this is the difference between esoteric astrology and, say, modern or even classical. But I'll tell you this, that even in classical astrology and Hellenistic, they still did look at the first house with that soul body sort of dichotomy. They did look at the first house as the inner man, too. You know, esoteric astrology, for those who don't know, takes the rising sign as the most important thing. And that represents your potential soul unfoldment. And the soul being that entity which survives, you know, from life to life and is actually evolving from life to life through the medium of the form. And I know some modern astrologers, they're not fond of, say, theosophy, for those of you who are aware of that tradition, or, you know, say the esoteric or evolutionary astrology. But to me it's very interesting to look at it that way, and particularly with you and your Libra rising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole balancing of the pairs of opposites then is that gift that you have, that service that you have to render, right, to your immediate environment and to those around you in your space. So and it's interesting you're a Libra moon too, because then that represents the lower side of it, or rather than say lower, I would say the more unconscious side, because the moon
The
is what we
primal
do.
side of it, the instinctual side of it.
Exactly. I always say, if you want to learn someone's moon, right, put them in a burning building and see how they react. The
I'm
moon is
gonna walk out of the front door very calmly and call 911.
Libra moon, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm like for real. I'm not gonna be sitting like, everybody panic. 'Cause I done read what happens. I done seen what happens when you in a difficult situation and you respond to it with panic. You
Right.
compound your interest. Now, I gotta say, we coming up on the minute 50, on the hour 55 mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here.
Okay, very good.
Thanks for being on today, Frank.
All right, my
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, I hope that in the future we can get you a more stable connection. And you got any other cool topics you want to talk about? I got an opening 2 weeks from now, and we can try running it up again and make sure that we got uh, that we well and prepared for it next go round. Now that we don't have these little 12th house problems, these little Mercury problems, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I feel you there. Well, it'll be better next time, and I still had a wonderful time, so thank you. I enjoyed it.
Oh, for sure. Glad to be here. All
And if
right,
I
everybody.
really quickly, I just would like to tell everyone, check out at Tarot Tots and Astro Sauce, our mine and my partner's page, and you check out our groups. We have Hades Babies and Tarot Tots and Astro Sauce.
Well, there you have it, folks. So I shall cut the live off here. Thank you all who watch, and thank you all who shall watch it in the future. You all have a great evening.
Take care.